my son kept saying, my daddy died and came back alive. Is my daddy okay? I don't want my daddy at the doctor.
So I send my wife a text and I say, hey, I need to go to the emergency room. And I said, okay, I'm going to go try to do some floor exercises. And if it gets worse, then I'll for sure go.
I was like, okay, I don't like that you want to go later. Let's go now. He's getting into the passenger side and he's literally picking his legs to like put them in the car. I was getting ready to turn on the freeway and I looked over at him and his eyes were just fixed open. Veins popping out of his head turning bright red as a tomato. Next thing I know, his body just goes stiff and hunches over. He doesn't move. He's like, I'm shaking literally a dead body.
For those wondering why Shea has the same last name as last week's guest, Jake, it's because Shea is Jake's wife. And so obviously Jake and I had a very heartfelt, meaningful conversation about an experience that he went through in the last year where he essentially collapsed, had a heart attack. And his point of view of the impending more than a month where he was essentially fighting for his life. And so I've chosen to bring Shea on because I want to hear her side. And so I'm excited to get to share your perspective on that experience that you went through. And I think this is going to be really cool and really meaningful for a lot of people to get to listen to. Let's maybe start with some of the signs. So Jake talks about his point of view around there were things that were happening inside of him that he could feel a few different moments. And being the manly man that he is, he just, like we do, we just ignored it, right?
Yeah.
Were these signs like prevalent at all to you? Did you realize what was actually going on, or was he just toughing it out?
No, he was just toughing it out. There were things that didn't seem, they were abnormal, but nothing like, oh yeah, maybe he thought he had COVID again. Like when you work out and like your COVID, like he couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And so we just thought, oh, maybe if COVID, it's weird. He just was having a hard time breathing, or we went hiking and he had to stop way more often. Things that were like, not you're having a heart attack, but just, oh, what's wrong? And after talking to a few people, like maybe you have low testosterone. So we went to the hormone doctor, like that. It was low, but not as low as we had expected.
Yeah.
So little things like that. And then the week of the heart attack, he had said, I think I need to go to the doctor. It's not getting better. And I was like, really? Like, well, what kind of doctor? And he just made a joke of, oh, whatever, and brushed it off. And then it just got worse and worse. And I'm going to go to the emergency room. And I'm like, wait, it's that bad? Like the emergency room? And he's like, yeah, I'll just go after my meetings. Like, it's probably COVID, but I want to be safe better be safe than sorry. And he goes to his meetings and then just was like, I'm coming home. I got better after the gym. Like, I'm fine. I'm like, okay, I'm so confused. Like, you need to go to the doctor, the ER, and it would just like get better. But every time he worked out is when it came up, which is why we thought it might be COVID, just like that hard time breathing. So then Friday, it was that day that he was at the gym, and within 3 minutes, like, hey, I think I need to go to the ER. And that's when I walked over to him and was like, let's go. And he's like, hey, no, I'm just going to go rest for a minute. And then not even 30 seconds later, I was like, he told me we need to go now. So at that moment, I was like, something's not right, but I still wasn't understanding the magnitude. But he was for sure just toughening it out. Like,
until
I never would have
couldn't.
thought that it was a heart attack ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
So you guys are both at the gym together at this time, right? You're both working out in the same gym. He sends you this text where he says, or he comes over to you, he says, we got to go, right?
A text, yeah.
Sends you a text. You guys does he just start beelining for the door and then you meet him at the door? What happens after that text?
So he texted me and said, I think I'm going to go to the ER again later after my meetings. And I walked over to him where he was this time physically holding his chest and in pain. I was like, okay, I don't like that you want to go later. Let's go now. And he was like, no, go finish your workout. Like he felt bad, like whatever. And so he goes to the waiting room while I go grab a pair of dumbbells and Siri reads in my headphones, let's go now. Please take me. Please drop me off. And I look over and he's walking to the daycare to go get our 2 babies. And I'm like, oh, I guess we're going. And as he ends up walking out of the daycare without our kids, and I have to grab him, and all the people in the waiting room are like, do you need me to take your kids? Do you need me to take him to the hospital? And I still am not comprehending, but they all witnessed him in the waiting room, like up in the foyer, kind of like struggling, where I didn't see that. So all these people knew more than I did, kind of how serious this was. And I was like, no, I don't know. We're just going to the hospital. And we walked out to the car where I thought he had meant drop him off at home so he could take his own car and drive himself, because that's what he has been going to do. Well, he's walking, getting into the passenger side, and he's literally picking his legs to like put them in the car. And he couldn't do that. Like he couldn't get in the car himself. And I just looked at him like, what's going on? And he was like, take me to the hospital now. And I just remember him getting in the car and, yeah, started telling me the lights were dimming and just lots of scary things that you don't want to hear. But, yeah, so he did just start going for the door. I'm like, waited for me to catch up. Not even waited. He was just, let's go.
So he says the lights are going out on me, and then they do go out. And you're driving at this point. Yeah. What's going through your mind?
So he keeps telling me the lights are going dim, and I'm like, what does that even mean? Do I need to call 911? No, just get me to a hospital. What hospital? And he tells me where to go, what to do, like in driving, because he does the driving. And I'm like, okay, well, there's no close hospital. I don't know where to go. And so I just start heading down Ellsworth, which, you know, is like the worst road and long and construction. And I'm trying to call my sister to come to meet me at the hospital to get my babies. And he's just in pain. Lays the seat down. He's up, down, rolling around side to side, like, I don't know, just saying lots of words in clear pain. And just told me, if I pass out, I need you to stay calm. And I was like, if you pass out, do I call 911? And he said, yes. And at that point, I was getting ready to turn on the freeway, and I looked over at him, and his eyes were just fixed open, like you see in movies, just like he was dead. And I'm yelling, Jake, Jake. And the next time I look over, they're open, but they're rolled back. It's just white. And he starts convulsing, having like what I would call maybe a seizure. Veins popping out of his head turning bright red as a tomato. Just literally so violent that I feel bad even saying it, but I thought he was joking. Like it's not even what you see in movies. It was so violent that I froze and paused, and I thought that, I don't know, I freaked out, and that happened for 30 seconds, and I'm screaming, obviously driving, adrenaline hits in, and he starts dry heaving, and I think maybe he has a migraine, and he's throw up, Jake, throw up, and next thing I know, his body just goes stiff and hunches over, and foaming at the mouth, and I shake him, Jake, you better be kidding me. If you're kidding, you better wake up. I'm calling 911. And he doesn't move. He's like, I'm shaking literally a dead body. And so I called 911. And I told them everything that had just happened. And they asked if he had a history of seizures. And it's like, no, but if I had to describe what just happened, I think that's what I would say. And yeah, then as I'm on the phone with them, he like gasped for air as if he had been underwater for 2 minutes, like, I'm okay. I don't need to go to the hospital. I was like, yes, you do. I don't know what just happened. And then they asked if I wanted to pull over, and he heard me say that. And he's like, don't pull over. Get me to a hospital. So I just kept going while I stayed on the phone with 911 so that they could make sure nothing happened again. I had to talk to him to keep him conscious. But yeah.
Are your kids in the car at this point?
Yeah.
How old are they?
At the time, 1 and 4, 3.
Do they have any sense of what's going on?
Honestly, I have no recollection of what my kids were doing. They were quiet. They, like there were for sure angels in the car with them or something, because, yeah, I didn't even remember they were there. And, but when my sister met me at the hospital, she got there the same time as us. My son kept saying, my daddy died. My daddy died. Why is my daddy going to die? And I think he may have just turned 4. But he kept saying, my daddy died and came back alive. Is my daddy okay? I don't want my daddy at the doctor's. And he watched my husband get in an ambulance and drive away, and he still talks about that. So there's definitely some trauma there with that one, but I don't remember anything that they were doing in the car, but they witnessed it all.
I wonder if you went into shock when that happened, or some form of shock, right? Where
Oh, for sure.
you went into kind of a flight or fight, like just very locked in on him and how do I get him to the hospital and how do I convey this to 911? And eventually you get to the hospital, right? I recall you drop him off there at the emergency room. He says that, you know, you're looking for a parking spot, which I think is probably like a silly thing to look back on now.
I had my babies, and he was like just dead. So in my mind, he's not walking in the hospital. Like I was going to have to help him.
Yeah.
And my sister was almost there. So I'm looking for a parking spot, and he's like, are you effing parking? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, drop me off. I'm like, I don't know. So I'm asking 911, can I just drop him off? And they're like, I don't know. You have to do whatever you guys. And I pull up to the front, and before I could even unlock it, he's unlocked and he's walked himself. And he's walking around. I'm like, oh, he's going in the hospital. Like, I didn't really know, because again, I was in shock. Like, I don't think I even understood the magnitude of what actually happened, because he's now coherent with me, right? So yeah, he walks in the hospital, and I went and parked, and my sister pulled in at the exact same time. She took my kids, and she's like, what is happening? I gave her a quick rundown, and I walked in. I couldn't have even been 5 minutes behind him. And I walk in, and he's nowhere in the waiting room. No, he's in a room with like 10 doctors in there. Maybe not doctors, but 10 nurses, doctors, all something. The people with an EKG already. And I'm like, what is going on? And that's where they told me, your husband is having a heart attack. And I was like, oh, that's what happened in the car. It's not a seizure. It was a heart attack. So at that moment, I was like, wait, what is happening? Still not understanding the magnitude.
At what point do you have the ability to just kind of finally pause and realize the magnitude of what's going on and just process all this?
I honestly don't think that happened until later that day. We were at the gym. Like my husband, okay, he had a heart attack. People have heart attacks all the time. They're fine. He'll be fine. We're going to help him. Well, this is kind of comical. Not really, but I felt like my husband's like a professional baseball player. He's active. He's like, a heart attack?
Yeah, he can't die. Yeah.
Yeah, and nowhere did my mind even think he was dying at that point until the doctor was like, okay, because we went to Banner Gateway, and they were like, we're going to transfer him by ambulance to Banner Heart. And I was like, okay. And I asked if my brothers could come in and give him a priesthood blessing. And they were like, they can follow you to the other hospital. This is life-threatening. And I was like, oh, like, is he dying? They said, well, you know, we can't really say. People do die from this, but it looks like one of his main vessels is dying. But it's life-threatening, so we need to get him over there. And I was like, okay, like still not grasping. Because at this point, he's awake, he's in pain, but he's like talking to the doctors. I don't know. I wasn't still grasping. So I followed the ambulance to the hospital. They obviously beat me. And I'm in the waiting room for like 4 minutes. And I hear the beeps. And they call code blue, which I know what that means. He had died. And I start freaking out. And a nurse comes out and tells me, like, they resuscitated my husband. He's stable, but in critical condition, and they're still working on him. And there for 3-4 hours, they worked on him while I sat there just not knowing what was happening. And just all the thoughts of, like, what could happen, and my babies won't remember him, and all these things going through my mind. What am I going to do with my life? What's happening? I think it started to kind of sink in, but still not totally there until the doctor who had worked on him came out probably like 4 hours later and said, okay, we put some stents in you have 3 main arteries. His main one was like completely like scar tissue, like blew up, soldered off, like a hose from the wall, like closed, soldered, could never recover. His second main artery was 100% closed, put a stent in, and his third main artery was 80% blocked. So he was like living off of 20%, and they put 2 stents and a balloon to kind of blow up the artery. And he said, right up until he coded, I was talking to him. He was funny. He was making jokes. And he just kept saying, like, if. And I was like, okay, you keep saying if he lives, or if, like, you're not really telling me, because they kept saying he's stable but in critical condition. And for me, stable means like a stable, right? Like this table is stable. It's not going anywhere. So to me, stable was a good thing. But it's not. You're just
it's like barely
alive.
Holding on.
Yeah, he's in critical condition, but stable. He's just breathing. He's alive. But they told me he had a ventilator in. He was in a medically induced coma. They said medically paralyzed, and which I've learned is like a coma. And in that moment, I just said, like, you keep saying if. Can you just tell me, like, straight up, like, what are his chances of surviving at this point? And the doctor looked at me in the eyes and said, like, I'd say maybe 50%. And at that point, I'm a processor. My mother-in-law instantly, like, freaked out screaming. And I just stand there like, okay. And it took me until I went and sat down where I'm processing that I, like, had this breakdown, like, oh my gosh, my babies won't remember him. This, that, like, I don't know. That's kind of when it hit me, is when the doctor told me the reality. Even though I had knew he coded, I had all these things. It wasn't like, this isn't my life. This isn't happening. He'll be fine. He'll be fine. So when the doctor told me 50%, I was like, okay, I have to prepare. And then my mind just kind of spiraled down. And my mother-in-law was like, you can't think that. You can't go there. And I'm like, no, like, he has the exact same possibility of dying than surviving. Like, I have to go there. I have to, like, prepare. I can't be naive. And not because I was trying to be negative, but just realistic at that point, kind of preparing for what was to come. And at that point, they told me they were going to air flight him to Banner University in downtown Phoenix. They had kept saying bigger machines, like ECMO. I don't know what any of these things mean. And now looking back, that's life support. Like, he's going to need this. Like, he needs these bigger machines. We just don't have those here. There's no beds available, but I know doctors there personally, and I'm going to get him in. And within 2 hours, they had a room available.
Thank you to our sponsors over at Bucked Up. I love this company. I love their products, their apparel, and their supplements. Recently, they dropped the mother of all pre-workouts, Mother Bucker. This is not for the faint of heart. This will make you want to claw your face off. So don't get stuck in traffic when you're headed to the gym. I love these guys. I love this company, and I love their products. They are clearly the best tasting pre-workout on the entire market, and they're number one for a reason. Bucked Up is my favorite workout brand, hands down. And they also have my favorite apparel for working out and just for daily life. It's Lululemon-like quality, but for a fraction of the price that's affordable. So head over to their site, buckedup.com, where you can check it out. And for 20% off their entire site, use the code TylerHall20. So some of these I think the easiest way to call it is like you're kind of flipping through these stages of trauma, like in real time, right? Where you're very calm, you're processing, and then all of a sudden it hits you and you become very emotional, and then you're planning, and then you're like, and some of those preparatory thoughts that you had, were very similar. And I don't know that I've actually read this before on the podcast, but I was taking notes while I was on an airplane coming home when I got this news about my wife. Very similar to your story. It was like, oh, she must have got lightheaded. Like, no big deal. Yeah. Like, she's going to be fine. She's healthy. She's young, college athlete, the whole thing, right? And then it just like the text messages just got worse and worse and worse. And it was like, and I wasn't there. And it was just like, now I'm on a plane getting these updates. And at some point it really hit me, like the reality of this situation. And I wrote it down, and I'll read it to you. So I'll show you this. Like, I documented this whole thing. I mean, this is the doctor that performed her surgery, and I have
a journal every day.
Yeah. We should share notes.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun to. So, I say I'm sitting on the airplane a few hours later after I got this news, 40,000 feet in the air, and I'm feeling hopeless. My wife of 10 years, my sweetheart, my lover, the mother of my 3 children, is in critical condition, and we lost our 4th child in the process. I can't fathom how she is feeling right now. Not just the uncontrollable pain, but also the fact that we lost our new baby, and an unlikelihood that we'll ever be able to have kids again. I can imagine her now unconcerned about herself in a moment of intense pain, and selflessly only concerned about our 3 children and our 4th, who she had to let go. I said, I feel so guilty that I'm not there with her and for her in this moment of struggle. I can't imagine what life would be like without her. I would be inoperable. I'm incapable of providing the same love and tender care that she does for our children. I know that she'll make it through this. She has to. God knows that I'm nothing without her. He knows that our children have needs that only she can fulfill. So she'll be okay. And then I think this is kind of that reflection piece. In moments like these, it immediately takes me to a place of reflection. Who am I? Can I be doing better? What is most important in life? What is this all about? Relationships are so much more fragile than they may seem. I never take them for granted. Cherish them. In moments like these, this feels more real than I want it to feel. And I remember being, I remember kind of going to the same place when I got this news from my father-in-law that it was pretty clear that she wasn't going to make it. You can't help but go just straight to that place. Just like, what am I going to do? Like, am I ever going to love someone again like this? Like, how do I tell the kids, you know? Yeah, just, those are hard thoughts to have, for sure. So I empathize a lot with that.
Yeah, that was like, that hit so close. So close.
There's, I was doing some research. So when Jake I think he was kind of in and out of a coma for like a month, roughly.
Yeah, 40 days.
And during this probably seemed like never-ending battle for his life, he experienced kidney failure, which I went through a bunch of studies, but roughly a 27% chance of death from kidney failure. He went through lung failure, roughly a 44% chance of death with the lung failure that he went through. He was on life support, which varying studies, but around 50% never come back from life support. And then he had a widowmaker heart attack, which, I think your doctor was probably being generous when he said 50%, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the hopeful version of the reality, right? Which is more like 88% of people die when they have this sort of heart attack. And what's happening, for the audience that didn't listen to Jake's, he explained this really clearly, but there's a blockage that occurs in what's called the LAD, which is the left anterior descending artery, which supplies about half of the heart's blood. Mm-hmm. And so when that half of that blood is cut off, your heart goes into basically its own version of fight or flight.
Yeah.
And so I want to, at some point during the interview, Jake says this. He says, I would have much rather gone through what I went through than what you went through talking to me. And says the mental struggle that Shea went through far surpasses any of the physical struggle that I had to endure. I want to play a clip for you. And I'll hold it kind of close to this mic so people can hear what's going on.
I apologize for getting emotional, but it means a lot to me because the attention was on me. It was people that would come to visit. How are you, Jake? How are you feeling, Jake? What's next, Jake? And there were really only a select few who asked about how Shea was doing. And so it means a lot to me because you're totally right. The focus was on your wife. Yeah. The focus was on me. And I don't think it was any malicious intent, people not asking how she was doing, but it really meant a lot to me. It means a lot to me this day. When people ask how she's doing,
Yeah.
How is she okay? What does she need? And we had a lot of people check in on her. We had a lot of people that reached out to her to ask, and it means the world to me to know that. I mean, essentially, I was dead for a month and a half.
Yeah.
And people took really good care of my wife. Really, really good care of my wife. And so, after the fact, when I was making the recovery, still this day, I have a good friend, and he makes fun of it all the time. He's like, I didn't care about you. I cared about Shea. And, he jokes about it, but there's truth to that. You guys went through a much more emotional and mental challenge. You're in a mode that only you guys can relate to. She was totally there, and you were totally cognizant and aware of your feelings and how things are. And I was in La La Land. I was off. Obviously, I was struggling and fighting for my life and things like that. But there's two sides to it, and you're exactly right. She probably and you probably have more trauma, leftover trauma, than either one of us.
Yeah.
So,
what did this do for your relationship with Shea?
Trying to make me cry all day, man. So Shea and I have been married for 8 years. And like I said, I was previously married for 5 years to another gal. Shea and I met. And when Shea and I met, I thought to myself, this is the girl that I was thinking about when I was going through my divorce. This is the girl that people talk about as your best friend. This is the girl that they talk about as someone that you can spend the rest of your life with, and all of the typical cliches. And she's more than that to me. I mean, she is much more than that. And after the fact, after everything went down, I remember specifically telling her, and it's hard to put into words what this kind of an experience will do, but it accelerates it more than, you probably know the exact same thing. And I said to her, this was like January of last year. We'd just been home, and I said, I feel like after all of this, you and I have been married for 50 years now with the way that our connection is. And you've probably seen it, Tyler, where you have maybe a set of grandparents or an older couple, 70s, 80s, that you can tell there's just a love there that is so pure and is tried and true that you want that kind of love. And I told Shea, I said, I feel like I have that kind of love for you now. That just after the fact, after everything that we've been through, everything that you've gone through, obviously everything that I've gone through, I feel like our love is now that, you talk about it like a fine wine, it gets better with age. Well, I feel like our love aged 50 years in a matter of 3 months. And
what a guy.
Love him.
What comes up as you watch that?
I don't know, lots of emotions. It's true, and not in a selfish way or I need attention, and I did have lots of people checking in on me too. And I didn't, at that time, it wasn't about me, it was about Jake. But there were days that I felt so alone. But the whole world was just fighting for Jake. We were praying for Jake. I feel like the whole world was. And I couldn't keep up with the text messages. I couldn't keep up with all of that, which is why I created that Instagram, because I was like, his phone, my phone, Instagram, Facebook, there was like 2,000 text messages in 2 days that I was like, okay, I'll just do updates and we'll all talk about Jake. And that's honestly what my only concern was. People ask, like, how did you do that? How, like, you're so strong. I'm like, no, it's called survival mode. You put one foot in front of the other. Like, you have no other choice. I wasn't concerned about me. I was concerned genuinely about Jake and about our kids and what our future looked like. But his friend that he's talking about called me on night 2. Jake's mom had been there all day, and I was getting ready to call my mom at the end of the night, and his friend called me. He was like, listen, I don't want to sound like a jerk. You might hate me after this phone call, but everyone's all worried about Jake, and is he going to be okay, and what's going on? I care about that, but I really care about you. And your life and what your future's gonna look like. And that's when he said, I need you to send me all of your passwords to your bank account, to your bills. I'm putting everything on autopay from your bank account. I'm setting up a GoFundMe. I'm taking over Jake's business, making sure the money is going where it needs to go, like just with no other incentive, right? Like he had no reason for doing any of this, but just genuinely, like, I know we can all sit and just worry about Jake, but like bills still happen. You'll lose your house if you don't do anything. And so he came in and just kind of managed my money and distributed bills on autopay and did all that stuff for my account and set up the GoFundMe and just kind of got me in a place where, like, I'll tell you, to be honest, there were days that he was like, send me the password to this. And I couldn't even go look for what the password was because I was so checked out that I'm like, if I had to actually pay these bills, I can't even just give him my login. Anyways, so him like stepping in to take care of me and my family was literally everything. But I don't really know, like, all of that. Jake said so much, and I don't know, like, our marriage has grown stronger. We do have this like 100-year-old marriage now that is like just, it's deeper, like he described. Like, I don't know, I watched him go through literally the worst thing and fight through it and come out stronger. And it just showed, like, I don't know, it's just like a true, pure love for someone.
There were a few moments where he flatlined, and I think he references 3 moments where he virtually died.
Yeah.
And in some way, shape, or form came back, or there was medical or a miracle, right? What do you remember about those moments?
The first time was in the car. And I don't think I understood at the time that he was like actually dead. I thought he had maybe just passed out, but the doctor had told me that after he had worked on him and that artery was completely closed is when he was like, it's like, I think he died in the car. And he's like, yeah, you're probably right. Like, that's why it's completely shut. Like, his heart stopped. And so it kind of validated those feelings. So that time in the car, I don't think I comprehended what was happening, but we talked about it, just shock and adrenaline, fight or flight. And then the time in the waiting room when he coded, I knew right away it was him. I knew, but I don't know, like, time literally froze in that moment. nobody told me it was him at first. Like, my mother-in-law, maybe it's not him. I'm like, no, like, that's him. I know it's him. And just fear, terror, like, is he going to come back from this? So when I saw that doctor come tell me, like, he's stable. And then the third time, I had left the hospital that night to go home and sleep, which was, I didn't do super often, but they made me sometimes go sleep in your bed, get a shower, and they had changed something with his oxygen, and he was off of the ventilator at that point, and they promised me they wouldn't do anything that night differently. And I walked into the hospital at like 7:55. I'm always there, 7:50, 8 o'clock. And I pick up the phone. Hi, I'm 716. And they were like, oh, give me 1 second. Let me see if they're ready for you. And I'm like, they've never made me wait. They know I'm the wife. Like, they've never made me wait. And I just knew instantly something was off. Like, that's weird. Even if they were bathing him, like, I've always been let in. And they got back on and said, oh, they just need a few more minutes and they'll come get you and let you know when you can come in. And I'm not joking you. I hung up the phone and I took maybe 2 steps away from the phone and I heard that same beep. I'm getting goosebumps. I heard that same, the annoying 3, and code blue. And I just knew. I stood there before they could even get to the room, but it was in slow time. And I'm looking as like a couple doctors and people are walking by, and I'm just like, I felt like in a movie where it like zooms out on this person and they're like lost in the middle of like passerbys, right? Like an out of body experience. Like this is my husband. Like, and I'm just standing here and I can do nothing. And they said, code blue, male, room 716. And right then my body like went into immediate shock. I didn't know what to do. I'm texting my family. Jake just coded. I just got here. And they're like, wait, what? And like, it was all just like, my brother called me and he drove down it. Didn't even tell me, just showed up to be with me. And a nurse had come out and told me, hey, we did CPR on him for 2 minutes. We have him stable again. And one of Jake's friends was, I'm going to say it wrong, a nurse, I don't know, like an how do you say that?
Esthetician?
Yeah, but there's like an I don't know. Yeah, esthetician, but a nurse, whatever.
Version of that.
Yeah. Just butchered that. But he would always come and hang out with me and check on me. And he came up as soon as he heard his floor. So I had my brother and him up there with me. And as soon as they told me they did CPR for 2 minutes, but he's stable, I was like so relieved. But at the same time, I was angry. I was so angry. Like, why did he code? You guys told me you were going to do nothing different, but they did. And I don't like to cause a scene all the time, especially like they're all taking care of my husband. But my friend that works there was like, no, you need to talk to like the manager. Like, I asked them if they do anything different to call me, because I wanted the option to be able to drive down for anything serious, right? If they were to take the ventilator out, I want to be there. And so I did talk to the manager, and anyways, I was being very calm about it, but I was angry. I was so angry. I'm like, what if he would have not come back from that? And I guess the whole time before he coded, he kept saying, where's my wife? Where's my wife? I'm like, he didn't think I was there for him. Well, I wasn't there for him. But the reality is I was there from, 7, 8 in the morning until 10 p.m. every day. But in that moment, he's like dying and looking for me. And luckily he came back, but I was angry.
Yeah.
So
In the event that he dies right there and you're not there.
yeah. And they're like, well, we would have come and gotten you to come spend if we did everything we could. And I'm like, but he didn't know that. And what if I wasn't here what if I was 5 minutes later? You know, it was just, yeah, so I was like panic, anxiety, like it was, I don't know, my body like was having like physical reaction. And then after he was stable, I got angry.
I want to say thank you to our newest sponsor, Jovi Health. I, first of all, love the founder. She was on the podcast. She's a friend of the show, Kim Olson. And this product is actually incredible for a lot of reasons. So when she came in on the podcast, she gave me one of their kits, okay? And these are basically these little strips that are like infused with some type of compound that can alleviate pain in men and women, right? So for women, it's predominantly used in menstrual cycles. But for me, I had lower back pain. And so she said, hey, put this on your back, wear it around for a few days and see how you feel. And it's actually legit. Like it works incredibly well. And so I've been super happy with the results. I've asked Kim to actually get me like bigger slabs of this stuff because it's helped alleviate, some lasting back pain that I've had for years. And so go check out Jovi Health. We'll have a code down below in the description, and you're not going to be disappointed by doing that. Yeah. I think this also is part of the hospital-involved trauma that people go through, because it's the same thing with me, where the way they performed the surgery, they literally took just sliced her wide open right in her stomach area, like worse than a C-section kind of thing.
Oh, gosh.
And when when our doctor found out her main OB, which is Beck, I don't know if you're with Beck or know Beck, but when he found out that they did that, he was really angry, like with me, like they should not have done that. They could have done it endoscopically. And so I was angry, like, why did you do this to my wife? And they also they were using a cauterizer to like seal everything up, her tubes and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And they burnt her really bad internally and externally on the way out using this cauterizer. And I'm like, guys, are you just not being careful or thoughtful about this whole process? And they said, listen, she was dying and we had to do what we had to do to get the blood out of her abdomen and get her sewn up. And so we did what we thought was best, right? And to come full circle, like I look back on that experience and I just go, dude, like I was super selfish for having any of those thoughts, because at the end of the day, without these doctors doing what they did, like there's no chance, right? So how do you process this now with like the fact that without these medical trained professionals, like Jake would be gone?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, like it is truly because of these doctors and yes, these like medical advancements and these machines that kept my husband alive. And they were all doing their best. I could see it. Like I could see each day they'd come in with a little bit of hope, but I could also see they couldn't tell me the truth, like what I wanted to hear. Yeah. And they couldn't tell me anything. It first started day by day, Shea. And then it's hour by hour. And I just couldn't understand what they're talking about. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, why can't we do something different? And then I would see them try something different and I would get excited. It was going good. And then that's when he would crash. And it was like, we need him on life support. Well, they don't say that. We need to do ECMO. And I'm like, why? Why can't we do the other machine we were going to do? Why this big one? And they're like, he's going to die in 30 minutes if we don't do this. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Like, yeah. I get it. Like they were just trying their best and they're using their medical terms that nobody on the real world knows.
Yeah.
But I could see, and one of the ICU doctors was about our age, and he would tell me, like, I don't know what I would do if I were in your position. Like, I'm trying so hard to do the best I can, because this could be me and my wife and my kids, this is so close to home. And so I could see them all trying. I could see them tell me that they don't take work home, but they would lay in bed, talk to their wife. And I'm trying to figure out what to do with him. I'm on my days off. I'm I want to be in, I want to be there helping Jake. And I felt a sense of even though that one time I got angry, and I was angry because it was not an emergency thing that they did. And I was could have called me. But I do know that they were trying their best, and I can process and look at it. And that was the only time I ever got upset, because I could tell the care that they were giving him and me. They were so good to me. And I could see them trying. It's not like they just sat there and let him just live it out. They were trying things, and when that would go wrong, they'd, try something else. Yeah. They're like, hey, we got to go back. We got to paralyze him again, which was a medically induced coma. And what I didn't understand about that phrase, we're going to paralyze him, I would look at him and I'm like, he looks dead. And I know it might sound like, maybe some people know this, maybe it's common sense, but I didn't know that, because there's a difference in just being heavily sedated and being paralyzed. Yeah. Heavily sedated, he'd get goosebumps, his eyes would blink. He's paralyzed. He's legit dead. His machines are the only thing keeping him breathing. Yeah. And it took me a few weeks to look at him and be oh. Because then when they would lighten the paralytic, I could see him get goosebumps, and I'm oh my gosh. Anyways, I could see them trying and it failing. And my hope was just barely hanging on, because I was this is going nowhere good.
What day do you wake up and things take a turn for the better?
I don't even know. That was okay. So I do know there was a few times where I would just be, and I'm not saying I'm taking credit for this, but I believe that Heavenly Father was involved in all of this, where I would have a breaking point. This sounds heartless, but I was in survival mode, so I barely cried during all of this. I had moments, but I was just, okay, we got to do this. We got to do this. We got to, And there was 3 specific times that I'd go home at the end of the night and I would lose it. Lose it. I can't do this anymore. I don't know what you want from me. Please, either take, if you're going to take him, just take him. This is enough. Enough is enough. And my kids need me. I'm not here. And there were 3 specific times that kind of happened. Progressively, my bleedings got worse or stronger. Each time that happened, the next day I'd walk in and something miraculous was happening. He was nowhere close to being off of life support, but they were hey, we're going to take him off life support. We think he's ready. So just little miracles where I was oh, he hears me, he sees me, and he's just letting me know, hang in there. But then the one day where things took a turn for the better, the heart surgeon, Dr. Amabil, came back from vacation, and they had been talking about this LVAD heart pump, a left ventricle assist device, since day 1. But he was too sick. He had pneumonia. He had there was never a time to do it. So they wanted his heart to possibly heal a little bit on his own, get healthier, maybe do it. At some point they were trying to do an emergency heart transplant. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling, but he came in one day. This was day probably, I don't know what day it was, but we're coming, after 40 days. He comes in and he looks at me and he says, hey, he walks in, and we're going to be pretty aggressive. I'm going to put this LVAD in him within 48 hours. I just got to get everybody else on board. How do you feel about this? And I was okay. And he was so realistically, your husband's dying. Let's just say it how it is. If he lays like this, your husband's dying. That was my biggest concern at this point. His shin was literally the size of, like, smaller than my forearm. I was like, my husband is deteriorating. Like, he's going to die of malnutrition. And
It's because they just couldn't get enough stuff in his body.
yeah, like, one of the doctors told me that the food or the nutrition that they put inside of you, he's like, I don't call that food, or what did he say? Yeah, that's not nutrition. That's just calories that is sustaining him to actually not die, but it's not enough if you're not up walking and helping the muscles and all that stuff. Like, he's just laying there with 40 days of being dead. Like, he not once got up out of that bed. Like, he was never awake enough. When he was in and out of a coma, he was like awake enough to, like, look at me and maybe nod his head if I asked him a question, but never coherent. And so this doctor comes in and tells me, listen, your husband's dying. If we do nothing, he's dying. And I was like, yeah, I know. I feel that. And he said, and if we do this surgery, he's still not healthy enough. If we do this LVAD, there's a huge chance that he might die. He said, but his only chance of survival is the surgery. And he said, right now we're on, I don't remember, I want to say a 50-yard line with 30 seconds left in the game. And maybe 3 seconds left in the game. I don't know football. But he said something to that effect and said, your only shot is a Hail Mary. And he's like, that's what we got with Jake. It might not go as planned, but it's the only way. How do you feel about it? And I just said, yeah, I'm scared to do something, but I'm scareder to do nothing. Yeah. Because I know where this is going. And if this surgery goes it's just going to be sooner. But we have to do something. I can't do this. And he just said, okay, well, nobody else in this hospital wants me to do this. So I got to get, them on board at our meeting tomorrow. And apparently he got his way, but I heard it was a very heated conversation. Not one person, they kept telling me he was the sickest person in the state of Arizona. Like, he had pneumonia. He had just everything wrong with him. And he said everybody wants him to be in the perfect condition, like, because his pneumonia and all these things could cause an infection, which could cause this pump to, like, not work and he could die. And he's like, but this pump was made for people like him, which anyways, it's kind of like, I think he, like, helped create this LVAD, if I'm remembering correctly. So he's like, this is, like, what it was made for, people like Jake. And I just remember feeling a sense of relief. And I know every other doctor wanted to do something, but Jake, they were just following protocol. He's not ready. He's not ready. And this doctor just came in and was like, I don't care. Like, he's dying, and I won't let this young man with 6 kids and this wife die. Like, I will do everything. And I guess he just went in there and just said, I don't care what you all say. Whether you like it or not, I'm doing the surgery. Kind of like, get out of my way and just let me go. And yeah, so that's the day. And he came in and said, surgery scheduled tomorrow at 3. And then he came in later and said, hey, I swapped him with my 9 o'clock. Like, he needs to be done. So had surgery that next morning, 3-hour surgery, terrified. He told me nobody dies during surgery because they're put on the bypass. He's like, but the days and weeks after today's a good day, but it might be bad. So it was like that anxiety of, like, he might die. And that night, with nowhere to go to sleep, they moved all the couches out. They moved everything out because they had to be in there with his chest tubes and draining his chest tubes literally, like, 24/7. I'm like, am I supposed to leave? He just told me he could die. And I live 45 minutes away from this hospital. Like, do you have a friend you could stay with? Anyways, my friends booked me a hotel, like, walking distance from the hospital so that I could, and I stayed there 2 nights so that I was not leaving my husband, but I, like, had to leave the hospital. Anyways, so that that was like a big day, that doctor coming in, because had he not done that, I don't think Jake would be here.
Yeah. What a guy. I mean, I get choked up thinking about him. I don't even know him. I don't even recall his name, whatever you called him. But like, the world needs people like that are willing to just be bold and use their intuition or their judgment to make these kind of calls and rally the troops together to get it done. That's incredible. Bless that guy's heart. I want to talk a little bit about the support community and just what that meant to you, right? Like, you had thousands of people reaching out, probably varying degrees of, thinking of you, praying for you, and probably the opposite end of the spectrum of people just dropping everything to support and help, whether it was meals or financially or rides or actually giving their time, right? What is that? Is it possible to get through something like this without that kind of support community? And what did that mean to you?
Honestly, I don't know how somebody would get through it. Maybe you can. But yeah, no, like, it was incredible. I've heard people say, like, oh, I have felt all your prayers, like, lift me up. And I'm just like, you did not feel my prayer. Like, I've never understood that, but like, I genuinely get it now. Like, it is what carried me. It is what the people reaching out, the GoFundMe that went crazy, this auction that was set up, that all these businesses and people were donating their services and time and like items and just all of these things, and shirts were made with my husband's face on it, and like, people were purchasing those and all this money and all this stuff. And then there were the prayers and like, I had a nurse come in one time covered in tattoos. He came to just draw blood, and he looked at me while he was talking to me and then left the room, and comes back and he goes, I was at a party last night and we were talking about this guy. This guy's name came up, who's 35, whatever. He's like, I didn't know his name, but this is the guy we were talking about. We prayed for him. And I just was like, wait, what? Like, how our paths just crossed, like, colleges. People were telling me, like, this whole college had a moment of silence and a prayer for him. And just all these things that were just like, holy cow, like, messages on this Instagram I made. It was reaching people across the world. I was having people from Australia and London that were connecting that they had a heart transplant or they have an LVAD, and just connecting with me with things that nobody else could like understand, like relatable, right? Where that was lifting me up and giving me hope. Like, okay, like somebody else that has this LVAD and they're living and so it's just this sense of community that I knew we had, but I didn't I don't know. It's crazy to be the one, like, you see these GoFundMes and you're like, oh, that's so sad. And like, that was my family. And I didn't like that. I was like, oh, I don't want to be that poor me family. But it was freaking cool to see people that just showed up like they did, dropping things off for my sister had my 2 babies. Like Jake had mentioned, we're both had previous spouses, so they had our older kids. But my sister took my 2 babies, and people just dropping off brand new toys, and because she has teenagers, so like people were just donating diapers and all these things to even my sister. Like, it was just it was incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, and I think that for that to work, for him to live, I think it probably required the masses to call on heaven for this support,
Yeah.
And we hadn't experienced it. We did a 24-hour fast, and I remember personally one night just feeling desperate, like texting everybody in my contact list, like hundreds of people, with this message, like, hey, we're doing this thing, it's a fast, and like, here's how you do it, and here's when we're starting, and please, if you're willing, like, to do this with us. And just the amount of people that did that and shared that with their friends and their networks, and we could have thousands of people involved in this thing, and it was powerful. Like during and after the fast, the amount of miracles that we saw in her health and recovery. She went from like sort of being in a state of comatosis to actually coming out of it during that fast. It was just powerful.
Oh, wow.
I got to call this one out. Then I want to talk about just what's next for your family before we wrap. But there was I think one of the most tender moment for me in Jake's episode was he talks about this third time that he was fighting for his life. And, he describes that he was ready to be done. He was just exhausted and kind of had gotten to a place where he accepted that this was going to be it. And he says that he heard your daughter's voice, and she said, "Daddy, no." And that was just, that one hit me super hard, But I got to ask you this more lighter question. Do you agree that your daughter Taylor was responsible for saving Jake's life? I know she loves to tout that.
She does. She's like, well, I saved his life. Well, I do. It's funny because if you know me, I will get defensive, and Taylor will say I'm very opinionated. So yes and no. No, for real, like I really do, because he tells me, like, one of the times he woke up, he was like, "Shea, I shouldn't be here." And I was like, "Yeah, I know." He's like, "I died 3 times." And I was like, "How do you know that?" He's like, "Because I remember each time vividly."
Yeah.
And he's like, "The kids were around my bed," and which they weren't. They never went to the hospital. Well, one time, but he was awake in a wheelchair, like he had the surgery. But yeah, he's like, the kids were around my bed and I was ready to go. And Taylor said, "Daddy, no." And he said it was the most peaceful thing. He was just, like totally ready to go. And Taylor's voice was like, "I got to fight and be with my kids." And so I tell him all the time, I'm like, that is so rude. Like, I was there every day. Like, I'm kidding. I'm
the one
kidding.
time she shows up,
but I'm like, for real?
dream.
I was there every day and you were fighting for your kids? Come on. But so yes and no, because I do believe, like, the nurses, there were some nurses I could tell that were judging me. Maybe not. But I felt for being there as much as I was and not being a mom.
Yeah.
And one nurse that I told that to, and she was like, "No, this is where you belong. Your kids are being taken care of.
Yeah, they're fine.
We believe," and I totally believe that, and I'm not taking total credit for it, but I do feel like me being there helped Jake not be alone and to know and have something to fight for.
Yeah.
But it was just Taylor's voice that, like, snapped him out of it.
Yeah. So where do you guys go next? I told Jake that I know he's on the transplant list.
Yeah.
He's optimistic that will happen this year, maybe.
Yeah.
And crossing our fingers. And I told him I'd interview him after his successful heart transplant. Is your life any different now with, Jake's obviously now like a robot. He's got stuff hooked up to him that makes him like live every day kind of thing. I was like, if that dies, do you die? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, what kind of batteries are in that thing? He's like, well, there's like a good battery and you can plug it in, but there's a backup battery. I'm like, dude, what? So what's next for you and your family? And, you know, how do you deal with this ongoing between now and the transplant?
So life is not that different, honestly. In the beginning it was. He couldn't walk. He was in a wheelchair. He had lost 70 pounds. I had to take care of him, pick him up, shower him, all the things.
Do you remember seeing me at the taco place by chance?
Yes.
You remember that?
Torchy's.
Do you remember that was me?
I do now. Like, I didn't know at the time who you were.
Yeah.
But Jake, yes.
Connected
he was like,
those dots.
oh, like Tyler Hall. And then a little bit later, I was like, who's that? He's like, remember that guy from Torchy's? And I was like, oh. So, yeah.
Yeah. I kind of forgot about it until now,
that was after, right? Like, that was.
He was pretty frail. I mean,
Yeah.
he was still in a wheelchair. You were still pushing him around.
Okay.
And he was pretty frail.
Yeah,
when I saw
remember.
him.
And I remember I felt like I was coming off rude to a lot of people because I was just like taking care of kids and pushing him, and like I didn't have time to like hi, you know, and talk. So
I didn't think about it at all. So yeah.
Yeah, like it was a crazy time. Like he couldn't walk, he couldn't like go to the bathroom, he couldn't shower. Like I had to physically do these things for him. And he started walking. Like life just started getting better and better and easier and more normal. But it was pretty scary for our kids. I think our kids were like, oh, dad's coming home. And that was like, dad's a vegetable on the couch. Like he didn't move. He can't play catch. I think they were kind of expecting dad to come home and be dad.
Yeah.
So I think that took them like some time. Like, when is dad going to be normal? Will dad ever walk again? But he's walking and he's incredible. He's at the gym every day. He's looks better than he did even before. He's golfing, working. Like he goes outside. We play wiffle ball with our kids. Like everything is the same, except he now has these batteries that have a power cord that go through his belly, and it's like pumping his heart until he can get a heart transplant, which is just weird and surreal that that's our life. But we try to laugh about like when he's connected to the wall at night and with his power, so it's unlimited supply. And then in the morning when he's like taking his batteries and connecting, we sometimes just look at each other like, what even is our life? Like, you're literally Iron Man. That's what I call him. He's my Iron Man.
That's cool.
So, which if you know me, Iron Man's like my boyfriend. So it was kind of funny in the hospital. I'm like, you're my Iron Man for real life. So, but yeah, life is normal. Just he can't swim. So that's really hard. This will be the second summer that he's had it. So the kids like, because he's the fun dad. He's the one in the pool.
Yeah.
But now I'm the one that has to be in the pool, and I'm not as fun as dad.
Yeah.
So that's really the only thing that kind of like is different about our life. He can't go boogie boarding with the kids, you know. But if that's it, like we'll take it.
Yeah. We
have him. So
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, and I'm excited to get to share some of these moments side by side with our audience. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.